Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to day 3 of your virtual yoga retreat. I'm Caroline and I'm going to be guiding you through some common yoga poses. If you've ever gone to a yoga class or if you've ever seen a book of someone doing this pose is Warrior 2. And I'm not doing it very great right now, but we're going to be dissecting Warrior 2. Before Warrior 2 there was a Warrior 1 and there's also a Warrior 3. These poses are very complex and I see a lot of people just doing them poorly. Not that they're bad, but we can always get better at things, right? There's always room to grow. So for today, we're gonna need a chair, and no, we're not gonna be sitting in it, and then 2 blocks or canned goods. The chair is probably the best thing for you if you're new to this. So the first yoga pose is Warrior 1 that we're going to be working on. So we're going to start in a standing position with your feet wide. So we want to line up the outer edges of your feet so that, imagine that you have like a ruler or a block, or you could use a block. We want to line up the pinky toe and the outer heel. Good place to start. This is just Upavista Konasana. It's a fancy word for wide-legged stance. We're going to take your left foot forward and we're going to step your right foot wide, like more in front of you. We're going to turn your hips to the front of your mat and I want you to bend this left knee. So the left knee, we don't want it to go way past the toes. We want it to be just like trapped right over the ankle. And I want you to pull your right hip forward and pull your left hip back so that we square your hips to the front of the mat. This pose can be really tricky in terms of balancing. So you want to widen your stance, like about as wide as your hips. That's going to help you feel more stable, more connected. So how do we find mountain pose in this pose when my legs are doing all kinds of weird things? Well, my feet are going to be, my front foot is at a perfect straight angle. My back foot is at a 45-degree angle. But really how we're referencing the mountain pose is it's all in the spine. So that's a big reason why we don't want this right hip to be back. We want it to be forward. And you can keep your hands on your hips. You can bring your hands into prayer. You can reach your arms all the way up to the ceiling. And if you do, remember, you can lift your shoulders up towards your ears. The yoga police are not going to come get you. And I want you guys, this is kind of tricky to imagine with your head, but we're going to use your hands. So take your hands onto the front thigh. Left hand on top of the thigh, right hand behind it. And we're going to rotate your leg, kind of externally rotate it to the left. So what this action is doing is it's going to help you access your left glute muscle. So we want to squeeze your glutes. Your glutes are your best friends. And you want to think about this leg kind of dialing out, spiraling out to the side. And from the back leg, there's 2 different schools of thought on this. So I learned this from Anisara, from my teacher Kelly Haas. Shout out Kelly, I love you. She always taught that we kind of want this internal rotation of the back leg, which I really like because it helps you to get your right hip more forward so that you can find that mountain pose in your hips. So a good trick you can do here is you can take your right hand onto the back of your thigh and then kind of pull the flesh, pull your skin so that it kind of spirals out just a little bit. You can use your left hand to kind of guide and spiral this left leg out. And then from here you can take your arms up, align your spine, pull the core in, squeeze your glutes, and keep the arms nice and straight. And this is a really beautiful Warrior 1. As you progress, as you get better at Warrior 1, a lot of teachers show you to line the heels up. So you can try it if you want. If you don't feel very stable, you can take your chair. You want to bring the legs on the mat though. And you can find your Warrior 1 and you can line the heels, kind of imagining there's like a ruler or a line down the center of your mat. And from here, we'll work on the same thing. So spread your toes, just like you do in mountain pose. You can use the right hand to kind of spiral the right leg out, and then you can use your left hand to kind of spiral the left back thigh in. And you have your chair in case you get a little wobbly. And then you want to squeeze your glutes, and we can lift your arms up and pull your left hip forward. So this is kind of the second level, more advanced version of warrior one. It's lining the heels. So a very common thing I see here is people spilling their chest forward. And although it's beautiful and it feels great, if you're working on stability and posture, you want to think about finding that mountain pose in your pelvis. So kind of lengthening the tailbone down towards the floor, drawing the pubic bone up towards your sternum. You'll feel a huge opening in the front of the left thigh. It's kind of interesting. It's called reciprocal innervation. Whenever one muscle contracts, like the prime mover, we'll use the glutes as an example. When you contract your glutes, another muscle has to relax. So the front of your hips, which we get really tight from sitting and driving and doing all the things we do, but this is going to get that hip hyperextension or hip extension that we want. That's kind of the goal of these poses, is to really get into the hips. So awesome, warrior one, conquered. We want to focus, again, like I said, on pulling your rib cage back so it stacks over your pelvis and using your peace sign fingers so that you can find that mountain pose through your spine. Okay, on to warrior two. From that wide-legged stance, we'll line the edges of your feet. We'll take your left foot forward and bend into your left knee. We'll take the arms out to a T, and we're going to kind of break this down too. So same thing with the spirals of the legs. This front leg, you want to get it spiraling out. So you can just take your left hand on top of the left thigh and just give it a little encouragement to kind of spiral to the left. And you can take your right hand to the inner right thigh and kind of spiral this leg out. You'll feel your pelvis kind of widen. It feels really nice. And then we also want to lengthen the tailbone down and pull your core in, arms reach out to the sides. A lot of teachers teach to take the gaze over the middle finger, kind of feel like a ninja. You can also play with this and take your gaze to your right finger, or you can take the gaze just straight out in front, especially depending on how your neck feels doing these poses. From here, the left foot, we want to press down through our big toes, just like we did in mountain pose. So really fire up the muscles of the feet. And it sounds kind of interesting, it sounds kind of funny, but just like we dial the hands out when we're on tabletop, you want to dial this left foot out to the side so that you can access this left glute. But we want to access both glutes. So we want to focus on kind of lifting the arch of the right foot, press down through the right big toe, squeeze the glutes. A very common thing I see with warrior two is people who let their knee kind of sickle in. We want to fight that. That just means your adductor muscles are kind of pulling, they're a little bit tighter. So we want to try to position the knee so that it's right over the center of the ankle and not kind of falling in or falling out. Another common misalignment is I see people stick their booties out like this, and although it's fun and pretty, we want to get the tailbone under and take the arms out. So that should be good. As far as the feet go, one last thing. This heel, your front heel that's doing warrior two, you want to imagine you can draw a line all the way back and it would run straight through the center of your back foot. So that's also like a good indication for, starting from the ground up, starting with your feet, building up to the hips, the core, the shoulders, just going through that checklist in your mind. It's really great. It's kind of like its own version of a meditation. So warrior three is our last pose of the day, and save the hardest one for last. I include these poses in my classes all the time because they're really good at strengthening your glutes. They're kind of like doing deadlifts. It's just like this really awesome full body involvement, and we'll possibly be needing a chair or blocks. Just have them nearby. So warrior three is commonly, I'll go ahead and demo it. We'll send one leg back and you're balancing on this other leg. From here, you can use your block, you can use your chair, And you know, a lot of people, like the traditional version is to get into like a T with your body. You can keep your hands in prayer, lift the shoulders, or reach the arms back and squeeze the shoulder blades together. And just feel how hard this pose is. It's really challenging. But you don't have to go all the way to the fullest version. We can come up more into like, you know, like kind of an ice skater pose. And from here you can start to work on pushing your chest like kind of forward and down. And you can start to, you know, focus on using your glutes to lift the lifted leg up. So we're gonna do this with the chair first. You'll just have your hands on the chair and stick your right leg back to start. Something that I commonly see, I'm gonna switch my legs actually. So something that I see commonly is a lot of people kind of stick the left toes out to the side and they're kind of in this flared foot position. And although, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanna get the toes pointing down towards the floor. We also have the same spirals happening here. So the right leg is spiraling out so you can really feel this right glute work. And this back leg is actually spiraling in, and we're reaching out through this left heel so that we can get this hip in line with the right hip as much as we can. We're gonna release. You can try both sides, but I'm gonna progress on to doing it with blocks. And blocks are, when I first started practicing yoga, I was like, I thought I just never needed props, that I was flexible and, you know, who needs these things? But as I've really fallen into this practice, I've discovered that these blocks are amazing tools. They can actually make things like harder, more accessible. You can get really creative with them. So they're just great to have around. But we're gonna start in a standing forward fold. We'll bring your knuckles up to the very tops, like the corners and edges of the block, and then let your fingers just kind of wrap down. From here, you can do those little scapular push-up things just to check out the alignment of your shoulders. And then we're gonna stick your right leg back behind you, and we're gonna work on those spirals. So spiral the left leg out a little bit to the left. We're gonna kind of dial the right toes down to the floor so you feel that inner spiral of the right leg. And you're reaching out through the right heel. You can keep this knee bent. There's nothing in, you know, I mean, there's some styles of yoga that say you have to keep your legs straight all the time. But I don't think that's necessarily the best for us always. You know, we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to do both. So yeah, you can stay here for, you know, 5 breaths or so, and we'll switch sides. So start with the feet, spread your toes. Ground up through the 4 corners of both feet. You really want to actively be working this back foot. You want to find the firing muscles of all the legs. Draw the core in, keep the spine long. Chin moves towards the chest and lift your head so that your neck is in line with the rest of your spine. Find that mountain pose here. And we'll bring one foot down. You can bend your knees deeply, let your belly come to your thighs. Shake your head, yes and no. Take a breath, or 2. Bring your hands to your hips, root down through the center of your heels to rise on up, and release the arms, and good work. We're gonna come back tomorrow for day 4, and I look forward to hearing any comments you have about the class. Thank you guys.